Each film I've tried to take something. I have one of the costumes, which was shipped from the UK back when I did Thor 2, and they brought it over in a big shipping container, and I thought, great, I'm going to put it in my, in the games room or somewhere, It's still at my parents' place in the garage in that box. When I got the film, it was a number of things went through my head. Firstly, it was great to be employed. It was great. I was going to extend my visa. I was going to be a part of something which sounded big and exciting, but I didn't have a whole lot of detail beyond that. And it was, a leap of faith on one hand as far as what was being pitched, but pretty easy leap in the sense that I didn't have any other options.
I don't think you've been completely honest with me.
Know this, son of Cole. You and I, we fight for the same cause, the protection of this world. From this day forward, you can count me as your ally. If you return the items you have taken from Jane.
Stolen.
Borrowed.
Each time you play a character, it's about what you bring to it, obviously, but so much of it is about who you're interacting with. And that can be other actors, the writers, producers, director, the crew. Everybody has some sort of influence in some way. That's what's been such a joy about playing the character over the course of 10, 11 years, is working with different directors and seeing what different directors expect, want, or pull out of the character. We had built this incredible world with Kenneth Branagh, and I think we really nailed the sort of vulnerability and the fish out of water and this individual coming to terms with who he was and what his place in the world was. And then with Taika Waititi, it was about doing something different and unexpected, and so we really dismantled the world, we dismantled the character, we put him in a very different place and environment than he'd been in the past. We changed his look, a dramatic haircut, which was, a risk to the comic book fans for a minute there.
Please, kind sir, do not cut my hair.
It was a constant exploration of what else we could do and staying away from what felt familiar. That was our duty at that point, to service the character in the world in a different, unique, fresh way for the audience.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
I had the tricky task of having this otherworldly, godlike figure that I was playing, but trying to make it relatable. And I think when the character didn't work at times was because we didn't have relatable features within his personality and his experiences that anyone could really sort of gravitate toward or empathize with or understand or connect with. Endgame in particular, there was the dealing with sort of the mental health of the character and his sort of the altering of moods and depression, if you will.
I know you think I'm down there wallowing in my own self-pity, waiting to be rescued and saved, but I'm fine, okay? We're fine, aren't we?
No, all good here, mate.
So, whatever it is that you're offering, we're not into it. Don't care, couldn't care less. Goodbye.
And due to tragedy, loss, suffering, which, all of us as human beings have experienced in some way, shape or form, and those elements, I do believe, allowed us to have some great connective tissue between an audience and this larger-than-life character. And each time since then, we've really had to dissect that and say, well, what mental state is he now? Where's his mental fitness or his mental toughness? Is he healthy enough to deal with this? If not, how does he deal with it?
Oh, wait! What am I looking at?
Oh, sometimes it takes a second.
The original hammer, actually, a friend of mine called me and said, is this yours? And we'd used it in a documentary that I was shooting that she was a part of, and it ended up at her place, and she said, do you want it back? And I said, yeah, I think I should get that one back. The opportunity to work with Ron Howard was the initial attraction. I didn't know anything about the story of Niki Lauda and James Hunt. My dad used to race motorbikes, so I understood the sort of that world a little. This was obviously Formula One and cars, but there's such a, it's a very similar sort of space to inhabit.
Lauda is through. He's in the lead. Hunt will be determined to make up for that mistake. Oh, there's contact. The leaders are spun out.
So it wasn't unfamiliar, but I had a lot of work to do as far as understanding who this character was and what the mindset of a Formula One driver was at the time, and especially in the 70s. You know, the statistics were incredibly intimidating as far as would you survive the season or not. Incredibly dangerous sport to partake in. We looked a lot at what the discipline and mindset of those individuals were, and Niki Lauda embodied the absolute precision and the prep and the quiet discipline and focus, whereas James Hunt went, I'm going to launch myself into the adrenaline side of things and have it be as visceral and animalistic as possible. And he had huge talent, obviously, as a race car driver, but a very different mentality to Niki Lauda.
That move was total suicide. What if I hadn't braked? We'd have crashed.
Well, no, but we didn't, did we? Thanks to your impeccable survival instincts.
Fuck you. What's your name?
James Simon Wallace Hunt. Remember it, my little Jerry friend?
The physicality of the character was completely different to what I'd been doing. I had to lose a lot of weight off the back of Huntsman and Thor and get and fit into the race car. And then comes the challenge of playing a real life individual and someone that people adored and look up to, and it inspired many, many people in a generation of drivers and so on, and had fans across the world. That was a pretty nerve-wracking task. I just kind of, I don't know, allowed that fear to motivate me into my prep.
And it's Andretti who has the lead, but Hunt is attacking. Hunt's going round the outside of Andretti. Niki Lauda following him through. Hunt leads into the first right-hander.
We had a number of days where we were in the cars ourselves. They were replicas of those cars, and it was exhilarating and exciting, and some of the most enjoyable prep I've had to do. We then had, you know, these cars that we were driving set up with cameras all over them, sort of smaller cameras mounted on our helmet, super close up, you know, focused on one eyeball at times, on each wheel, behind us, in front of us, and so on. And so as we drove around the track and weaved through with the other drivers, we were getting real in-camera action that, you know, you couldn't really produce on a VFX stage as much, I think, without that authenticity. And then we had a stunt crew and stunt drivers come in and do the extreme stuff, and they were kind of bumper to bumper and weaving in and out as they would in a real race. The blending of us being inserted into that environment and those guys as well gave such impressive footage and, as you say, experience for an audience member. It was a really exciting thing to be a part of. I had just done Saturday Night Live, I think, and I did a cameo in a film, Vacation. And so I'd done a little bit of comedy, which Paul Feig had seen and thought, oh, he should play this character. And the script was great and fun. I loved all the women who were going to work in the film, were going to play those parts. But I said to Paul, there's not a whole lot on the page. Like, what do you want me doing? He said, we'll figure it out when you get here. So I said, okay, why not? Let's go. And I got there, turned up to the studio the day before we started shooting, and he handed me the script. I read the script, and I said, "There's still nothing in here. Like, what am I doing?" And he said, "It's okay. We're going to improvise and have fun." And my immediate reaction was, "This is not only the end of my career, but I'm going to ruin this film. I'm going to let everyone down. I haven't done this before. What am I doing?" And then I met Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, the crew, the cast, and I just became a whole lot more comfortable because there was such a sense of camaraderie and collaboration there at play, and they took me under their wing, and we just went on this adventure, this wacky adventure of discovering who this character was.
What have you been doing with your whole life? Great question.
Oh, well, lots of different jobs. I did the actor thing. Worked for...
Just real quick, can I ask why no glass?
Oh, yeah, they just kept getting dirty, so I took them out. I don't have to clean them anymore.
Oh, boy. I gotta try to keep that in mind.
90% of it was improvised and in the moment, and not often do you have an environment to really do that in. You know, people talk about improvisation, but usually they've got a couple of things tucked away in their pockets and they're going to say that on camera, which is not quite improvisation. Whereas this was, you know, Melissa would say, "I want to try something," and just start coming at me with a line, and then I'd have to sort of sink or swim and try to come up with something to throw back and so on. And incredibly freeing because there was still a lot of, you know, the sort of anxiety bubbling under the surface, but it just became so much fun. It just became about trying to not laugh, about trying to make the other person laugh. It reminded me of drama class or being back in high school or something, and thought I want to take that into everything I do. You know, I want to be able to have that much fun. I want it to be a wonderful collaboration and exploration as that was.
From my pocket.
The character was a pretty broken individual, one who deep down had a lot of courage in there somewhere, but it was buried through a very depressive experience, the loss of his wife and family, and so he was, you know, searching for answers at the bottom of a bottle. But that kind of attitude, this sort of brashness, there was a carefree, chaotic sort of nature to him, which allowed us to have a lot of fun with it.
I seem to have drunk it all, but you're welcome to it when it comes out again.
Again, I was still happy to be employed and to be working in big films and big entertainment, popcorn, blockbusters, if you will. That was the films I loved growing up, but I also had an appetite to do some more smaller character-based kind of films where special effects and big action scenes weren't necessarily the most dominant force.
Much has been made about the punch that you caught from Kristen Stewart.
Oh, yeah.
Have you forgiven her for that?
Oh, yeah. No, I was more upset she didn't continue on through the take. She kind of hit me and then immediately went, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I was like, that would have been the perfect, most truthful take we had. I think she was more upset than I was. It was unlike anything I'd read before. The world that was created was unique and fresh. The character itself was vastly different to anything I'd done before. I was intrigued by the questions it was posing and you know, this search for understanding of human emotion and can we manipulate that and can we have mood-altering substances and drugs and so on from a pharmaceutical group.
Jeff, Heather, can I have your permission to administer N40? Drip on?
Acknowledge.
Yeah.
Heather?
God, she's a pain in the ass.
Acknowledge.
Thank you.
For me, I just saw an opportunity to explore a space and try things I hadn't done before. Just about every actor loves that process and you know, where it is just about performance. You're working with different individuals and you have an idea of how you think they're going to play it and they do something different and immediately you've got to pivot and adjust and so on. I like the spontaneity to that. I like being forced into a place of unknown and then you are truly in the moment.
Come on, guys. Words, words, words.
Okay, yeah, she's starting to look pretty good.
There was a great script there. Joe Kosinski was already directing, and it was right in the middle of COVID and lockdowns and restrictions and everything. We also wanted a film that we could shoot on a soundstage with 3 or 4 or 5 actors in a confined space, a controlled environment. And this read like a play. I think it could be a stage play, the way it presents itself and unfolds. So we were all really excited about the practicality of being able to shoot during that time.
Yeah. I could.
Yeah.
I could.
Good what, Jeff?
I think it was going to shoot maybe in the US at one point. I was in Australia, so as far as the sort of producing element of it, I said, look, there's some great spaces in Australia to shoot, you know, incredible crews and cast that we could utilise. And to their credit, and Netflix and the whole production team, to be able to pivot from wherever they were shooting before and put it in Australia and set it up, I think within, you know, felt like 6 or 8 weeks, and then to shoot it in about 6 weeks, I think, was pretty remarkable.